Here I'm unboxing the GloShift transmission temperature gauge. It's 2 1/1/16 in diameter, 52 millimeters. Has 7 different colors that you can cycle through with a little button in the front. Black 7 Color series. I'm trying to do this with one hand, so bear with me. Alright, that was the main box off, and that's the gauge right there. There's a plastic protective film on the glass. Alright, that's the sun visor. I used it to actually mount the gauge. That's a little bag of goodies, the sending unit, the bracket, the little studs and nuts and washers, instructions. And this is the actual gauge. It's in there really well. GloShift really packaged this thing really well. And that's the gauge, upside down. Right side up. And that's the little button you push to cycle through. And that's the gauge. 2 1/16 or 52 millimeter. So really small, much smaller than I thought.
I think I'm gonna mount the transmission temperature gauge right here in this spot. But it's raining cats and dogs outside. So what I think I'm gonna do is go ahead and wire up everything inside, as far as the wire for the gauge dimmer, constant, switchable, ground, all that good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and run the wiring harness for the gauge, wire that up, get the wires ready for the sensor that goes to the sending unit that goes to the transmission test port. I don't think I'm gonna put the sending unit or the sensor into the test port today because of the rain, but I'll go ahead and get all the work done on the inside of the truck. Some measuring. This is the spot that I'm going to cut out. It should clear everything, so I'm going to use my rotary tool and cut this circle out. Alright, the hole is cut out, the gauge is in. Basically what I did, I used the sun visor thing that came with the gauge to give it a little bit of an angle. So now I'm going to go ahead and secure it with the bracket. This is the back side of the gauge. And of course the retaining bracket, you can bend it as needed. So I bent it like this. It's going to slide onto these 2 studs right there. And hold the gauge. Well, it's going to hold the gauge in place, but you'll see. We're in the passenger side footwell. What we're going to do is, right by the transmission hump, those wires from a backup camera, we're going to punch a hole right here in the middle, just big enough for this small grommet, and we're going to fish the signal wire and the ground wire through it right there. So we're going to put some primer on it and some well, it's hidden, so you don't need paint, so we're going to put some primer on it to help prevent rust. A ton of primer, so it should be alright as far as rust. So we're going to work the grommet in there and pull the 2 wires through, signal and ground. The wires are fed through the grommet to the underside of the vehicle, so I'm going to go underneath and crimp on the connections, male, female, and put the wire loom on there. The transmission test port is. That's the front of the vehicle. That's your transmission pan right there. That's where the 2 lines mount, the 2 coolant lines. You see right up just forward and up. See that bolt right there? That one. That's your transmission test port. Just take that bolt out, and that's where we're going to screw in the sensor. You can see the sensor is in, the wires are ran. So I'm going to go inside and finish buttoning it up. It's a little bit of transmission fluid that came out when I removed the test port bolt. Wires come up from the transmission well or transmission hump up through here. So I'm going to remove the radio bezel and wire up the harness or the plug that came with the temperature gauge. I'm starting the wiring process. What I'm going to do is I'm going to piggyback from the radio. The green goes to the white wire from the temperature sensor. The black, of course, one for the gauge, one for the sensor, goes to ground. The yellow goes to a constant 12 volt source. The red goes to a switch source. And the orange will go to the dimmer switch. The harness is all wired up. The gauge is mounted. So what we're gonna do now is make this this bird disappear and put everything back together. Nice and secure. All wires are ran. Radio's back in. Let's turn the key. Oh man. And there's the gauge. Let's turn the headlight on. Actually, let's try to change the color. There's green, red, yellow, purple, white. There's a bunch of different blues. Let's leave it at green for now. Match the truck. Alright, it's about 80. It's about 1 notch below 100 degrees. So let's give a few minutes and see how it starts to read. I haven't really tested. I don't remember if I tested. Let's check the dim feature. Right now the headlights are not on. Let's turn on the headlights and see if the gauge dims. Yep, it dimmed. The headlights on, the gauge dimmed. I'm about to turn the headlight back off. And the gauge brightened. So everything's working. I don't know if you can see the gauge. I'll review it. If not, I'll do this again. I've been basically a steady straight shot, fairly level road, doing 70 miles an hour cruise control for the past, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes, just cruising. And that's apparently where the transmission temperature sits. Remember, I already did the radiator transmission cooler bypass, so I have 2 external coolers and no radiator transmission cooler, and that's where it sits, barely over 120. And I did pull a small hill earlier, a small incline, and it got up to a little over 130. But steady cruising on the highway, this is where it sits, just a tick over 120. So next up, I'll pull my 7x12 or 7x12 trailer, and that thing is heavy. It's fully loaded, and we'll see how the temperature gauge looks. All
I slowed down to 60 miles an hour. I'm going through a work zone, so the speed limit dropped. So as you can see, now the gauge is just under 120. So cruise control at 60. The gauge is just under 120. Cruise control at 70 is just over 120.